here we go. Spawning in the top left-hand corner of Gresvan, we have the Canadian Protoss player representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Gresvan, we have his opponent. We have the Finnish Zerg player, the son of Cyril. I don't want to spread rumors. Representing Berserker Esports, it is Mixu. Let's go, Poppy. Let's go. It's catching up in the chat. Fun fact, there was another place where we had Australia twice because someone misspelled it. Oh, not like this. Not like this. I don't blame them. Don't blame them, as we have some pretty standard openers so far. Mixu going for the unnatural natural, as Trigger does block that natural base. Likewise, Trigger setting up a gate expand. The last PvP that we casted was very wild, very dynamic, very PvP, very aggressive. A lot of all-ins, a lot of one-base play. But here, things should be settling down, and we should be having a much more standard, much more normal setup here for a more normal game. Normal series. Mixu isn't really one to cheese, and neither is Trigger. They're both a little bit more macro-oriented players. So yeah, I am more than willing to embrace that here and calm down after that series between Astra and Hero. Okay, we'll be getting more of them later on in the afternoon, in the evening. Oh. And yeah, Mixu, he's always been an up-and-comer. He hasn't been able to break into the upper echelons of the European scene. It's difficult because there are so many European players. Mixu, he's, you know, around the pack of Soul Spirits and Young Yakov. I do think that the three of them are quite close in skill, and they're like kind of the more mid-tier European Zergs. Under players like, you know, Raynor, Cyril, a Laser, of course, Lambo. They're the players that they strive to be. And they, you know, Mixu has been quite active over the past couple of years, ever since the COVID era of StarCraft, ever since 2020, and has been improving over time. And this is his moment. This may be his first offline event. Maybe he was at IM Katowice. It's possible. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, regardless, I know that there were a lot of young players. I didn't even get to mention it. That was Astra's first offline event as well. Astra, Mixu, Night Phoenix. It was some of their first times in these offline settings. So it's really exciting to see them experience that for the first time and you know, get more involved. Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. As opposed to, you know, Hero, who's a little more experienced and has been doing it for years, of course. Doing it for years. Likewise, Trigger as well, now that I think about it. I mean, I'm sure Trigger was at DreamHack Atlanta, at least. I know that, at least. But it's one of these weird scenarios where there are a lot of players that got into StarCraft and really thrived in StarCraft during like 2020 when the offline events stopped, basically. So yeah, it's really cool to see now that restrictions have been alleviated, now that the world is opening it back up again. These players are able to have that experience finally after so long. Meanwhile, the adepts do shade on in. 2 workers are going to be going down. Pretty acceptable losses for Mixu. Could have been a lot worse. So very well done here so far in the defense. Back at home was a Stargate opener into the first Oracle. We are trying to set up that third base, but no, the Lings are here tonight. Because Trigger just threw away both of his adepts, he doesn't have enough at home to defend, and the pylon will go down. The third base is going to be delayed. Trigger, though, instead focusing on his harass. The Queens are out of position. Oh no. Mixu with a little bit of misjudgment there. He does move his queens away. He does expose the mineral line, and even though not a lot of workers are going down, this is a lot of lost mining time. Ay. So a lot of inadvertent damage is going to be dealt. Meanwhile, Trigger at the same time was forced to stay on 2 bases longer than he would have liked. So far, both players are going blow for blow. You know, Mixu delayed the third, Trigger delayed mining. I do think that Trigger came out a little bit ahead in that exchange. Meanwhile, second Oracle joins the fight, and with 2 Oracles, we can one-shot workers. This does mean that this force of Trigger is that much more deadly, and Mixu has to be careful. Oh, across the map, Overlord is going down. It was a triple Oracle opener from Trigger. It does mean that his Forge is a little bit more delayed, but it should be on the way nonetheless. Oh, as Mixu does pull back very nicely once again, barely losing any drones. Meanwhile, there's that transition. We have the Twilight Council on the way, additional gateways as well. Trigger is delaying his forge by quite a bit, which is a little bit suspect. The longer this goes on without a forge, the more I believe that Trigger may go for a 3-base all-in. And we'll see, though. It's still a little bit early to call that. Meanwhile, 2 more drones go down. Meanwhile, both Oracles dive in towards the natural base, and they're going to get even more workers, 4 in total. This is starting to add up. In total, 6 workers have gone down. Still an acceptable amount of damage. Mixu, it's okay losing only 6 workers. But he's got to be careful because the Oracles are still alive, and they're still going to be looking for more worker kills. Meanwhile, the 3rd base is getting up and running. Oracles diving back in. Stalkers are moving out. We have more gateways being thrown down, by the way. We are reaching a very high number. And Trigger is looking to be very committed with this. Okay, there we go. We have a forge on the way. He is setting up for a later game. Just applying some pressure, just being active, just looking to force back some of this creep and force Mixu to make an army. +1 melee on the way. Roach Warren is done. So far, we only have Lings to defend. And right now, Mixu, he's defending on a knife's edge right now. He only has Queens and a handful of Lings. He has to try to hold on. He has to hold on to this 4th base. Reinforcements are coming on in. We do force that Pulsar Beam to be activated. Oh, Mixu bleeding out too much. A lot of Lings go down, and Mixu may have to give up this space. He doesn't want to, though he can't. If he does, that'll be a massive blow to his economy. His Lings threatening another surround. Very careful control, very careful micro out of Mixu. It looks like 1 queen is gonna fall. 32 more Lings in production. So far, Trigger has been trading so efficiently. He's been so careful with when he chooses to activate those Oracles, to activate those Pulsar Beams. 61 Lings have gone down this game to 1 Stalker. The Blink Micro has just been a little bit too good, and even if Trigger gets forced back here, like he's already done so much damage, it's already worth it. There aren't enough Lings for us around either. We're going to be able to pick off a couple of these Stalkers. To be fair, +1 melee does kick in. Mixu, he buys some breathing room. We should be seeing some roaches in production as well. Roach speed is done, but yeah, no roaches yet from Mixu. Like, there's still no real backbone to this army. The backbone are the Queens, and the Queens are struggling. Now the station trap does get activated. Trigger just continuing to reinforce the warp in. His prism is being sent across the map. 10 gates are done. Trigger not taking any additional gases either. Like, he's very committed. He's very committed with this. Mixu setting up a surround. But I don't think he has the numbers. He does catch some reinforcements though. Very nice pickups from Mixu. Gets a good chunk of Stalkers, but at the same time, Trigger is breaking on through. It's getting on top of the roaches, getting on top of these Queens. Mixu just needs some time. He is getting on top of some of these Stalkers, but we have another warp in here in the face of Mixu. Yeah, and with that warp in, Trigger has too much. The Lings have all died. They've all fallen. And Trigger has broken this base. Oh, he's trying to. Another wave of roaches do come in, but roaches on their own is not ideal. They need Lings to support these roaches. These were expensive losses for Mixu. The base goes down. Trigger expanding behind this. He's got charge on the way. Mixu trying to hold on. And he does now have a decent army, to be fair. And he does have a backup 4th base at least. But Trigger has so much momentum at this point. Like, it's gotten to the point where he is getting out of hand. Like, things are getting out of control. Prism looking to maybe go and do some harass into the main. Trigger trying to find another way in. Mixu even getting supply block. Now is not the time. Now is not the time. Baneling's trying to go for a counterattack, but no, they run into Stalkers. The Oracles lay siege upon the new 4th base. Prism dives into the main as well. And Mixu's out of position. He has to race back home if he wants to save anything. And GG gets called. The Zealots get out of hand. And Trigger takes game number 1. Oh, GG. Yeah, this is a style that has kind of fallen out of fashion from Trigger. Going for like it's between 7 and 10 gateways. It's going for an all-in. You typically see this on Gressfarm with a proxy gateway. So the 10th gateway is actually in the middle of the map, so you can reinforce in the face of your opponent. Trigger made his 10th gateway back at home instead and went for a Robo, went for a Prism. So yeah, a bit of a different variation out of Trigger. But because there is no reinforcing gateway, it's easier to hide and easier to like kind of mask what he's really doing, because it is basically a 3-base all-in. I know that he went for a 4th base behind it, and he was working towards charge, but that's only because like he already had so much of a lead that he could like afford to do those things. If Mixu was able to hold on to that 4th base without losing too much, then he would have been ahead. Basically, would have been in a more commanding position. But yeah, there was some rough trades. So many links going down so early on, and yeah, it was really well executed by Trigger. Very, very good blink micro from Trigger as well, able to avoid disaster, able to preserve his Stalker count for so long and just snowball out of control. Really well done. And now we're going to be getting into game number 2. Let's go. Let us go. As spawning in the top right hand corner of Altitude, we have the Canadian Protoss player representing Team Basilisk, leading the series 1-0. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom left hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Finnish Zerg player representing Team Berserker Esports. It is Mixu. And a very interesting map choice. Altitude, the largest map in the map pool, a very commonly vetoed map as well, but did make it through the veto process between these two players. Very bold from the Zerg, I would say. Typically, I feel like this map is vetoed. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Typically, we see this map vetoed quite often. Skytoss can be very prevalent on this map as well. But it's a double-edged sword. It's possible that Mixu believes that if the game does go on that long, that he will have the advantage, that he'd be able to maybe out-control Trigger in the late game, maybe have better engagements overall, better run-bys. I mean, the bases are very spread out, so it can be difficult to hold onto your bases, to hold onto your fringe bases as the Protoss if you are not too familiar with, like, walling off, and if you don't have the attention span to keep up with, like, bailing counterattacks and bailing run-bys. You'll see. We shall see what the players have in store for us. As we have a hatch gas full opener from Mixu. Once again, it's forced to take the unnatural natural. Meanwhile, back at home, Trigger does go for a gate expand, so nothing too crazy, and I don't expect anything too crazy in the early game. As we saw, Trigger is willing to be hyper aggressive in the mid game, but that is very akin to Gressvan. The build that he went for, again going for like the 10 gate, like pure Stalker all in, happens often on Gressvan, happens on Ancient Cistern as well. I haven't seen it too often on Altitude, but that may just be because the amount of games that we get to cast on Altitude in this matchup is a little bit lower. So maybe that's why you haven't seen it too much, but we'll see. We shall see. Along those lines, though, I don't really expect Trigger to go for that opener, or sorry, go for that build 2 games in a row. Do you think it would be unwise? And this is where I have to praise Mixu a little bit as well, because as a reminder, it was a while ago, but in the early game of Game 1, Mixu was actually doing a really good job at defending. He was able to catch and kill the initial 2 Adepts. He was minimizing his losses and keeping up with the Oracles as well. I was very impressed. I was very impressed with how little damage Mixu was taking to the harass of Trigger. Boy. We'll see if he's going to be able to do the same here in game number 2. As that Stargate is on the way. Mixu chasing the probe out very far out and is going to get punished for it. The Adept is going to be able to chase down these Lings. At the same time, Mixu, being aware that the Adept is active on the map, is going to try and get a free scout off the wall. Is not a wall, but the second Adept does pop out in time. And Trigger is going to be able to wall off here. Mixu instead just having eyes on that third base location. And we'll see how hard Trigger commits to this. So far, one Oracle is on the way. Could go for a double Oracle opener into faster tech, or we could go for a triple Oracle opener and again, like, delay that Forge a little bit instead. We shall see, as Trigger's just being as annoying as possible, keeping the attention of these Lings back at home. Link speed is now done, so we should be able to clean up this Adept momentarily. Meanwhile, the Oracle dives in towards the third base. No Spore, but there are two Queens. Ooh, one or two drones go down, but the Oracle does sustain quite a bit of hull damage. Mixu working on the Spore in his main and his natural base. Again, at his third, he's just going to be relying on his Queens to defend instead. He does have 3 Queens at this base, so he should be able to preserve his workers. We'll see. As here comes that second Oracle, and we do have a third Oracle behind this. At the same time, third is thrown down by Trigger, and Mixu won't be able to delay it this time. He won't be able to slow it down. As the Oracles, they smell weakness. They do recognize the vulnerability of this base, and 3, 4, 5 drones go down. The target firing! We do get an Oracle. Not too bad. 5 drones for an Oracle. I would say maybe a slightly better trade for the Zerg, just because Oracles are so valuable. We saw in that last game, Oracles, if you preserve them from the early game, they do so well supporting your Stalkers. They do so well at just killing Lings or stopping any surrounds, stasis traps as well. I want to say in the past it would be like, it would be worth it for an Oracle to get 7 drone kills. So 5, not too bad. Oh, as once again we do have Blink on the way, gateways as well, no Forge. This is looking just like game 1 from Trigger. Looking just like game 1 so far, except he has lost an Oracle, of course. Mixu working on his 4th, droning up, saturating his bases. He's got his Rotor on the way, +1 melee as well. Yeah. This is looking to be the same build here from Trigger. For the time being, he's working towards 6 gateways. He's being active with his Stalkers. If he throws down additional gateways, again, he's just, yeah, gonna look to throw down nothing or just be as aggressive as possible. Now, I would think that he would go for a proxy gateway with this, just so we can reinforce across the map because altitude is so large, but we'll see what he goes for. The Stalkers are going to be pressuring that 4th base. Quite a bit already. The Queens are being brought to the front lines. Lings have to be careful. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of creep here, so, oh god, that base is already taken quite a beating. As soon as the Lings try to go for the surround, the Oracles do activate their beams. And they do force back those Lings time and time again. And this hatchery is getting very low. Oh my god. The Queens, we need a chance to use these to try to keep this alive, but no Trigger. He goes for it. The 4th base goes down. Alas, Mixu just did not have enough to hold on. The Queens are being caught off of creep as well. They can't just, no! Mixu! He overextends, and 2 Queens go down. We could get even more. A 3rd Queen as well. This is snowballing out of control. This is getting a bit out of hand. Lings are doing what they can, but again, the Blinks are looking good. Looking at the units lost tab, Trigger has not lost a single Stalker. He's killed 53 Lings. And 4 Queens, and we just blink up into the main. It looks like finally some of these Stalkers are going to be going down because they misrally into the spine. But again, Trigger, he can, again, a little bit of a misrally. Trigger's expanding behind this. He's throwing down additional gateways. He blinks down onto the low ground as well, trying to get another cancel or another denial of that 4th. Does get surrounded. And finally, Trigger is bleeding out some of these Stalkers. Mixu immediately going for a counterattack. I think this is a wise choice. Mixu's also expanding behind that. He's trying to take the gold as best he can. The wall is a wall. Fourth base is getting up and running. Oh, this thing counterattack. I really appreciate it. It looks like he should be able to bust on in, but there is a secondary wall behind it. We have plenty warped in back at home. Trigger does hold on. Another Oracle gets sniped, but Trigger, he's getting further ahead here. He's up on 71 workers. He's working on a second forge for 1-1 upgrades. He's going to be incorporating charge zealots as well. That's a lot of zealots already warped in. Now Mixu is setting up for a surround. He's going to be able to catch some of these soldiers before the zealots come in to reinforce. Very crucial here for Mixu. Shaving off a lot of these stalkers, but the zealots are coming in to just pick off these reinforcements. And it's just kind of a numbers game at this point. Mixu, he's really struggling to build up an army. The queens are getting caught out once again. The roaches have finally arrived. Charge isn't done. Mixu is going to be able to chase back the zealot army. But we have more reinforcements. We have a 5th base being thrown down as we speak. No! Wait, what? Did that die? Oh no, did Trigger do that? Or who did that? If you remember, Mixu, he had a base on the way, but it looks like the tower fell on the base. Oh no. Or maybe Mixu cancelled it. Hopefully he cancelled it. He didn't lose the base itself. But yeah, this hatchery was thrown down for a second time. That's why it wasn't done. Ay. There is no second hatchery killed, so it looks like it was cancelled. I think maybe Mixu did that intentionally. I hope so. As the zealots do go for a big counterattack. This is going to get cleaned up. This is not the best trade here for Trigger, but he's distracting the main army. At the same time, he's looking to dive in towards his 4th base once again, and it was softened up earlier from the constant attacks. Okay, Mixu gets here in time. He does force Trigger back. Meanwhile, another Zealot Rabbi is going uncontested. Another base is going to be cancelled. Your Trigger is relentless, just pulling Mixu apart. Time and time again. And it's just with a pure gateway army as well. Trigger just mass expanding. He's up to 92 workers. Very Haas-esque. A swarm toss style. Who needs immortals? Who needs colossi? Hey, you're making things too complicated. Just make stalkers and zealots. Really just stalkers. That is all you need. And again, Stalkers are a very momentum-based unit composition. If you don't have the blinks to actually preserve your Stalker count, then things won't work anywhere near as well as they are for Trigger, but he's been doing such a great job at picking and choosing his fights, microing well, preserving his oracles as well to make sure he's able to support his army and avoid any kind of links arounds. As I say that, he's still down to 1 oracle. But yeah, Mixu just hasn't been allowed to expand. He hasn't been allowed to drone. At every turn, he's being denied. He's stuck on 3 base saturation. He's stuck on 63 workers. He's running out of patches, running out of money. Desperately needs to expand. Is going to be forcing Trigger back. At least on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, the Zealot Rambai is getting a bit out of hand here as well. Over on the right. Oh. Yeah, the Zealots are breaking on through. They're getting into the mineral line once again. Mixu forced to turn around. Oh no. And his 3rd is under threat. Is it going to go down? Can he save it? Up! It looks like he barely will. At the same time, we have a drop load into the main base. We get 3 probe kills, but we're able to warp in time. Trigger cleans up the drop. At least Mixu holds on to his 3rd just barely. But GG gets called. Once again, the 5th gets denied again and again. And Trigger takes the series 2-0. GG. Oh. GG, well played. You can't make a base if the tower stands. You can. It's just offset. Oh, I should have checked the replay. I should have checked the replay for Mixu. Actually, you know what? I need to know. I'm checking the replay. I need to know what happened there. I need to know if he decided to cancel it or something else happened. I'm pretty sure he just canceled the base though. Let's see. But yeah, obviously there's a Zonaga there, but I'm pretty sure the hatchery was within range of that tower if the tower fell. I just want to see like who knocked. I want to see who knocked the tower down. If it was Trigger or if it was Mixu. Hold on, I'm scrubbing through the replay. That's all I want to know. I want to know who knocked it down. Yeah. For those who don't know, if you knock down those rocks, you will kill the tower. Of course. But that is not what we're checking. We're checking what happened to the base that was there. Because the base was thrown down next to the Zonaga. And we weren't able to see what happened. And I'm curious because when we check the units lost, the hatchery didn't show up as a building killed. Okay. No, he didn't kill. No, he didn't kill the Zonaga first. That's why. The Zonaga has nothing to do with it. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we notice this. Okay, so he throws down the base next to the Zonaga, and the next time we saw this, the base was gone, and he had to rebuild it. So that's. So I want to see what happened. That's because in the midst of the fight, Mixu, he was trying desperately to take this gold base. And I want to know if there was like a zealot run by here or if Mixu, if he decided to cancel it himself. Like, did it finish? Okay. Okay, never mind. So he does cancel. He throws out an Evo chamber, and he does knock it down himself. Okay. I was concerned that Trigger, that the base had finished, and that Trigger killed these rocks and killed the base himself. But no, Mixu did cancel it instead. Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Because of course we were paying attention to the fight at the time instead. All right, cool. But yeah, regardless, GG, well played. Congratulations to Trigger for taking the series. Yeah. The Evo chamber blocks the rocks. Yes. So that means the rocks disappear immediately. They don't. So you don't have to kill them yourself. In case you didn't know, that is why some people build like a depot there if they're a Terran, or a pylon there, so then when the rocks get knocked down, the rocks are destroyed as well, so it makes it faster to expand. That doesn't explain why a hatchery was thrown down first, unless, I guess, Mixu changed his mind. I imagine that initially, because he threw down a hatchery, he planned to just long-distance mine from the gold, and then he thought better of it. That's what it looks like anyway. As Trigger advances on into the next round. Could have been a misclick. It could have been a misclick. I'm going to assume that he changed his mind, but it could have been a misclick. You're not wrong. It's very possible. Very possible.